Okay, welcome to Mysterious Labyrinth, and this is a video and broadcast about near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And I'll start by trying to describe as best as I can the experience I had when I was approximately between 7 and 8 years of age in hospital in London with chronic bronchial asthma, fighting for my life in hospital, in the hospital ward. And I remember there was a doctor, there were two nurses. I remember very clearly the two nurses. I vaguely remember also, even today, 38 years later, the costumes the nurses were wearing and so on. I was in the waking state there, it was pretty hard breathing in that condition. So, but I do, as I was like fighting for every breath, I could see I think that they were wearing this pale blue stuff and white stuff, and they had these little hats on, funny little hats. These two nurses had little white hats on. Roughly remember this anyway. What they were wearing, and basically then it came to the stage where I was flatlined, declared dead. That's when the little line on the what's it called, oscilloscope, measuring your heartbeat and all the rest of it. You see them on the if you still watch the TV, which I don't. See them on these little hospital programs, or if you've been in the hospital, you'll see the little beep, 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 and then when it goes, boom, that's what they call it, flatline, because there's no heartbeat. So that's basically what it means, being flatlined, doesn't it? Many people think of the physical death being the end of it all. This was not my experience, and I went out of my physical body, and this may sound strange to a lot of people who haven't experienced this, but I'll try as best as I can to describe it. The physical body, well, actually I floated up, and I was hovering up under the ceiling and looking down on my physical body below me, so I could see as I'm looking around the room now, I could see and I could also hear everything that was going on. A third nurse came in, and she had a completely different costume, a more elaborate head thing, kind of funny sort of squarish thing with bits sticking out or whatever. She had more black in her uniform, and as I remember, she took, it's a long time ago now, but either she took with her this box. It was a little rectangular black box with, and you open the lid, and then there was some like long metal thingamajigs in it, some gadgets of some kind. I don't know what the gadgets were. I remember she went round to the left-hand side of my bed, around my feet, over to the other side of the bed. Two nurses on this side, the nurse in black coming around on that side. She took the box, she put it on this little little table next to the bedside there, right by the bed. I opened the box, I could see the little gadgets in there, and all of this, I'm seeing this from outside of my body, and what some people would call the spirit body, soul, spirit, and so on. So there I am, looking down on it all, and the next thing I remember is floating up through a tunnel, and everything, I was weightless, everything was pain-free, no suffering, no nothing. It was just a wonderful feeling, just basically float. There was also, as I remember it, there wasn't much of a sensation of G-force either. I mean, you might imagine traveling at an enormous speed, like if you were traveling very quickly in an aeroplane and you do a 90-degree turn, or if you're on a roller coaster, you're going to experience some G-force, you know. So you imagine you go on a roller coaster, it goes like that, as if you don't already know, and then you swing it and it goes up again, and you get pressed into your seat because you're going woo like that, you know. So or if you're in your car or in a car and you take a turn, you feel yourself being pressed to the side. There was none of this. It was just like whoa, floating up through this tunnel, and very similar to a painting. I like to point this out because there's a painting by a fellow called Hieronymus Bosch, who lived approximately 500 years ago, who painted this tunnel, very similar to what I saw in my experience. Only there weren't so many demons and angels around in my tunnel. No demons, no angels. I've seen demonic entities in other experiences I've had later in life, but not in this tunnel. Another difference between the Bosch painting, I'm not sure what it's called actually, maybe it's called Ascension or something, or I might be right there. The light at the end of the tunnel, in my experience, was just a tiny pinprick of, it's like I didn't even see it was there to start with. I was just like floating up through the tunnel. I didn't realize there was a light at the end of the tunnel at all. So, but you see in the Bosch painting, it's quite a large white area. So that's a difference. Just to try and I'm trying to be as specific as possible with my description. It might ring a few bells with some people, you never know. I certainly appreciated hearing other people describe their experiences, and you realize, wow, you go through several experiences and you'll find there's a lot of uncanny resemblances between many of our experiences. So anyway, so moving on, I'm up through the tunnel, and then I noticed this tiny little speck of light, right? Tiny little speck of light, and it's far away. It's like, wow. So I'm like moving towards this tiny dot, and quite some time passed. It seemed like quite a long time, and I'm moving up, and gradually I got closer and closer to this little spot of light, and it grew to the size of I don't know, I would even say it was between 5 and 10 meters diameter or something. Somewhere between 5 and 10 meters diameter, like a doorway. I just got to this light. Everything was white. I stepped through. Everything was just bright white light. And it was like literally being in light. This is one of the best ways I can think of to describe it so far. That almost like going into as if you jump into the pool, you hop into the sea, like jumping in water. I mean, imagine jumping in and almost like swimming in light. I wasn't swimming though, but like being in the light itself. And it was also being a part of this light. I remember turning to the left, and there was this light body, like the silhouette of a human being, looked more or less like a human being, hard to be sure, because it was just emanating light. It didn't say what it was called, and I'm not religious, I'm not a member of any religion. Some people, and this was just turning up in the thread, so I thought it was worth a mention. Even though I don't follow any religion, I can understand completely that someone who's already a member of this, that, and not the other religion might associate this being they're seeing with something that's been told to them in scripture and so on and so forth. However, it's possible to have this experience and simultaneously not be part of any religion. So the experience in itself for me is for me direct information. So I'm not going to take anyone's written words on secondhand information when I have the first-hand information to go on. Although I do find it interesting to look at what certain religions and also philosophers, esoteric mystery schools, and all these different in the realms of the occult, the hidden. Once in a while, you come across this theme in one form or another from different schools. Certainly not the schooling we're forced to go to, the mandatory, obligatory brainwash. But enough about that. What happened next? Yes, the voice. Well, it's there right in front of me. I've turned to the left. I come out of the tunnel. I'm turned to the left, and I'm looking at this light body, spirit, soul, creature thing standing there, and it says to me, "Look, you have to go back. It's not your time yet." That's what it said to me. You have to go back. It's not your time yet. And I thought, well, I'm quite happy up here. Thanks very much. That's what I felt very good up there. At first, I didn't really want to go back. I just got here, mate. Do you mind if I have a look around? I remember I went back down the tunnel, and the journey back down the tunnel was super fast. It was like straight back, that long journey up, complete contrast to what I was experiencing on the way down. Really, really fast down, and literally through the roof, through the ceiling of the hospital ward. There's my body below me, zap, back into my body, and I come back to life. Now, although the next thing I remember is walking out of the hospital with my mother when I started to describe to her events that happened when I was supposed to be dead. And I could describe every single detail of what was going on in that hospital ward from that angle up under the ceiling when I was hovering up outside of my body. Now, science, or some people, even regardless of science or not, but this kind of scientific meat lump mentality where we're not supposed to have a soul, we're just a kind of there are different ways of interpreting reality. So it would have us believe that this is just an hallucination, fantasy dream, hogwash, codswallop, that sort of thing. But then if, let's say, hypothetically, let's take the hypothesis of it being an hallucination. Well, for me, it can't be an hallucination when all of the events that I described during the time that I was declared clinically dead, actually I was looking down, and I could describe this afterwards, much to the surprise of my mother when we were walking out of the hospital, because her jaw dropped. And she said to me, "Look, but how could you know that? And how could you know this? How could you know that?" So if what I was having, if my experience was just an hallucination, what would be the chances of all of the details of what was happening in the real three-dimensional world down here with your feet planted on the ground in the real world, as we usually call it, conscious waking state? Everything I described from up there actually did happen down here. which for me proves to me personally, it's hard to prove it to anybody else, but for me personally, it proved to me that, oh my God, that experience I was having was real. I was actually outside of my body having this experience. And well, this blew me away. I mean, it was, it's certainly, I mean, it gives you a bit of a different perspective on things. It's flabbergasting. So years passed, but after this happened, I did ask grown-ups and stuff, you know, about, you know, you heard of a tunnel or something? Had this amazing experience, you know, do you know anything about this? People just looked at me strangely. And I got desperate trying to find out about this, you know, if anyone else had had the experience. I was so curious to know that. So I even walking in Twickenham in London, when I lived in London at that time, walking in Twickenham, I was asking, I remember asking 3 or 4 grown-ups, you know, I was just a young lad. Actually, I was a bit older then, because I was old enough to like walk alone through Twickenham Centre, but I did remember asking one lady that I knew just happened to know my mum and my stepfather, and she looked at me very, very strangely. She she looked yeah, bewildered and worried. Actually, she couldn't get out of there fast enough. Anyway, so excuse me. So so I gave up talking about it for many years and didn't really mention it to anyone. And then years passed, and then my mother and we went to Norway, because I was born in Norway. All of my grandparents were born here, and so forth. So we came to Norway to visit my grandparents, who lived, when they lived on Frøya, which is an island on the coast of Trondheim. And then one day, my father, a very dramatic sort of fellow, to say the least, my Norwegian was very limited at that time, but he grabbed me by the wrist, trying to tell me something, you know, oh, da 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 da. I couldn't understand anything he was saying. So I got my mum. I said, please, because I mean, I can speak Norwegian now, but I couldn't then. I mean, I knew a few words, but what he was saying to me then, I didn't have a chance of understanding it. So I called out to my mum, and I say, Mum, please, can you come and translate this for me? He's trying to tell me something. And lo and behold, my mum's translating it. What is my grandfather describing when he had one of his many heart attacks, was driven at full speed to the hospital, and he's describing exactly the same thing, where he's gone out of his body and the tunnel and the whole works. And I was flabbergasted. This is the first time that I had it, and it just happened to be my grandfather as well. It was the first time that I met anybody else that had also had this experience, and could reflect it back to me, or tell me, and then wow. So that was the first time, like, it's not just me then. My granddad's telling me this. And I wasn't sure if he'd heard my story and if he was just telling me to comfort me or something. And I'd asked my mum, actually. I remember asking her, did you mention my near-death experience to my granddad sometime or something? Because I'm starting to wonder, you know. And she said, no. So I thought, well, okay. It's a thought that crossed my mind. And no, I was flabbergasted. Anyway, many more years passed. I was living in Spain for 5 years after that, and after working a couple of years in a photo shop in London, and we moved to Spain, and then we moved back to Norway again, and eventually, a good few years ago, I ended up getting the internet. And that's one of the searches I made. I started searching the internet for near-death experiences or anything. I tried, no offense to those who are religious or believe in this, that, or the other, but I try to stay away from the actual near-death experiences that are often really using the theme to even sell religion. I'm not saying I'm trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't think or anything. Personally, I am not. I don't need the religion to experience what we're talking about here. So, where am I? Many years passed, and yeah, I did a lot of searches on the internet, and found many. Ended up talking to people on the internet as well. Some of these people have also, and I've met some more recently on Facebook. We've been talking about it, a couple of 2 or 3 of us, and it's been really as interesting as ever. So, what does it all mean? Yeah, what does it all mean? I'm trying to gather my thoughts really, and try and round off that theme for the moment. School doesn't tell you this, is another thought. There are a lot of things they don't tell you at school. Look outside the box, you might find something very interesting indeed. And thinking of the body as a box, that was really looking outside the box, because that was very special. I'd also like to mention another dream experience I had when I was younger, and throw this into the mixing as I'm at it. Might also make a bit of a longer vid. And this was a personal experience, dream experience, a repetitive dream that I had also when I was a very young lad, and I kept falling out of bed. Anyway, so in the dream, I'm sitting on the edge of a cliff, and I'll just give you the short version. I was sitting on the edge of the cliff, dangling my legs, looking over the edge, and it's so far down that I can see blue sky and clouds down there. And then boom, boom, and the ground is shaking, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I turn around, I look behind me, and there's a 50-meter tall giant up behind me with a black beard. I mean, a bit like something out of Jack and the Beanstalk or something. And there's this big fellow, 50 meters high, and he goes, stretches down his massive hand, picks me up, has a close look at me, and then he chucks me over the cliff, and I start falling. So I'm falling like this backwards, whoa, 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 and there's a terrible tickling sensation in my stomach. And I'm falling, and I'm falling, and I'm falling, and I'm falling, and I'm falling. And then what seems for like 20 minutes or something, and then bang, I hit the bottom, and I wake up, and I'm lying on the floor next to my bed. So I've woken up from the dream, and I've actually fallen out of my bed, and I'm thinking, whoa, that's weird. So I fell out of my bed, and I dreamt I fell off a cliff. Now, at that time of my life, I kept rolling and falling out of bed. And every time this happened, it happened maybe 7, 8, 9 times. Every time it happened, I had a different version of this same dream. It's like, here comes the giant again, and it's chucking me off the cliff, and I'm falling, and I'm falling, and I'm falling for what seemed like about 20 minutes. Bang, I hit the bottom, wake up, and I'm looking at my bed beside me, and I'm thinking, oh my flipping Henrys. So what's going on here? After I had the dream several times, I realized, hang on a minute, I'm looking at the edge of my bed, and I'm looking at the floor, and it's only going to take about a second or two at the most for me to fall from the edge of the bed, bang, and hit the floor in this 3-dimensional realm. But in the dream world, falling from the edge of my bed down to the floor was like 20 minutes. And then later on, you know, in life, I got to hear about rapid eye movements and all the rest of it. And they're doing these experiments, you know, sticking electrodes on people's heads and measuring brain waves and all that sort of thing. And REM, rapid eye movements. There's even a band, not my sort of music, but it's okay. I think it's called REM. It's also named after that, the rapid eye movements. And I'm thinking, okay, so if you're experiencing, right, 20 minutes or more of time in the dream realm or in an area of the dream realm, I think there are many different vibrations and possibilities there too. But if you're there, you're experiencing 20 minutes of falling, when in this world, it's only going to take a second to fall. How do you compress 20 minutes into 1 second? So when you see someone's dreaming and they have the rapid eye movements, their eyes are trying to keep up with what's happening. You see, when you're trying to press 20 minutes into a second, your eyes are going to move really fast to keep up, because the eyes are in the physical world down here trying to keep up with something that's happening up there. So imagine trying to play a 20-minute long film in 1 second, and it's like, that's what I'm talking about. So I hope that will give you a clue as to what some would call time. I think compressing 20-minute experience into 1 second, and think of playing the film, play a film that's 20 minutes long in 1 second. This is what it was like, and that's why you get the rapid eye movements. And that's going to be just about it from me for today. But I may return some other time. That's goodbye from Mysterious Labyrinth. Toodle pip.